Hi, my name's Vicky, and today, as for my assessment for Teach Food Studies, we're going to cook lamb kofta wraps. Excuse me for my nerves and any little mishaps I may have along the way. I'm not yet used to being a YouTube superstar, but I'll do the best I can and hopefully we'll get through this. My class did this as part of their SAC, and they looked at where the ingredients originated from and where the dish originated from. So the first thing they asked me when they looked at the recipe was what the difference was between a kofta and a kebab. And when we looked it up, the difference was that a kebab tends to be traditionally served on a stick and sold in kebab shops and on the streets. And a kofta is basically made of the same thing, but it's generally homemade and in rounder meatballs. We're going to put it in a wrap today, but you can actually put it in Lebanese bread, you can have it in Turkish bread, you can have it in anything you like, but I've got lamb wrap. I've got wraps here in the cupboard, so we're going to use the wrap. It's actually a dish. Kofta is a name many aren't familiar with, and a kofta is basically a mixture of minced meat, usually lamb, but it can be beef or pork, and it's mixed with aromatic spices, combined, cooked, and then presented however you'd like to do it. And it usually has a yogurt accompaniment, being Greek, but also because that offsets nicely the real spiciness and the strong flavours that are in the meat. It's a Parisian dish, so it originated in Persia, and one of the ingredients that the students weren't familiar with was the burgle. I'm not sure if I'm saying that properly, but it's can be quite chewy. If you wanted to compare it to something that's perhaps a bit more known, you'd perhaps compare it to a couscous when it's prepared. You soak it in water like you do your couscous, you drain it, then add it to your recipe, and it tends to have a light nutty flavour, but it doesn't come from nuts. It comes from cracked wheat. Burgle actually translates into bruised grain. It is a healthy alternative to perhaps rice or breadcrumbs that you might use in burgers, more in our Western cultures. It is healthier though because it's high in fibre, it's rich in folate, and because of its nutritional content, it is considered both a carbohydrate and a protein. So it also fits into our dietary guidelines, which we've been learning about: eat more, eat less, all those sort of things, our big picture things about creating healthy patterns. So I've actually combined some of the ingredients here already, but I'll go through what's in it. Excuse me a second while I wash my hands. Okay, so obviously we have our minced lamb. We also have some olive oil. That's mainly just to put into your pan to cook it. I have a non-stick pan, a fairly good quality one, so I don't use the oil in it. There's half a red onion, which we will dice, garlic, which we will crush, your burgle, which I will get soaking now. You need to let it soak for about 20 minutes. Sorry, not 20 minutes, about 10 minutes. And the reason is that gives it time to absorb the water and soften. I'm just going to set the timer on my phone so I don't forget about it. And it means that in the time that we cook our burgers later, 5 or 6 minutes each side, it will actually be cooked, not partially cooked. We have our spices that we've put into it are cumin, coriander, mint, chili flakes. We put some lemon into it, some lemon rind and some lemon juice. and salt and pepper to taste. Now, having cooked these before, they are quite spicy, so if you do have a family that don't like really hot food, perhaps cut down on some of those, especially the chili flakes. So we've placed our burger oil in cold water, enough, you don't need a lot of it, enough to cover it, and we'll leave that for 10 minutes and then we'll drain it through a fine sieve. Now it'll work in a normal sieve, not a colander, guys, don't get the two muddled up, but I've bought a tea leaf sieve that it works best to drain through when I find where my kids dried it and put it. Here we go. So I'll use that to drain it in 10 minutes. Okay. The first thing you need to do is to cut your onion, keeping your fingers well away, and to crush your garlic. And you need to do that so you can soften it in the fry pan. Once again, this is so that it can cook through when you cook your burger later. If you put it in raw, your onion may end up a bit crunchy and your garlic won't have blended and be at its optimum either. Remembering to use the claw shape with your hands so that you're not cutting your finger. And the easiest way to cut down on those tears is to slice the end off. Leave the furry end there. Slice the end off. Then slice through your onion and down. And by leaving that intact where all those chemicals are that tend to make us cry, we can hopefully cut down on the amount of tears that we shed while doing this. Okay, so just dicing those. And same with your garlic. Just careful with the fingers again, peeling it. And either with your knife, fingers up and the palm of your hand, pressing down to crush it and finally chop it, or I've actually got a press, and with a rocking motion we can get that to a lovely texture. Then scraping that through and popping that into the fry pan ready to soften. Probably take 3 or 4 minutes, and you'll know because your onion will start to go transparent, so we want to be careful not to brown our onion and overcook it. We want to be releasing the flavours, releasing the aromas and softening it, because it will cook further once you pop it into your meat mixture. I'm going to set that aside because what I did earlier, not being familiar with this whole filming process and whether I'd actually be able to stop and start, is I prepared some, and I've got my garlic and onion already softened and already cooled. Now the reason I've got it cooled is one of the tricks is we don't want our burgers to fall apart. We want them to stay together, and a lot of students find that they fall apart because they haven't let things cool down. We want to have the meat cool and everything cool that goes into it so that the meat doesn't render. So that means that the fat's not going to liquefy, and by keeping that fat as solid as we can, it's going to help the burgers retain their shape. So I'll just grab the meat out of the fridge. Now I've already measured out my lamb. I've got 200 grams of lamb mince here. And I'm not really big on touching raw meat, so I'm going to put gloves on. Totally personal preference, but just make sure, as with any of our cooking, that your hands are clean, your nails are short, all that sort of thing. Even when you're putting gloves on, still make sure they're clean. And I even go the step further of wearing my beautiful hat, because unconsciously I touch my hair, and the hairnet is just a little reminder to me that it's not annoying, but it's enough to remind me not to touch my hair. So hopefully that flows on to the rest. So while you're waiting for your onion and garlic to cool, you can start getting the rest of your meat ready. And what you're going to do is, in with your lamb, you're going to put half an egg. Now the first thing students ask is, how do I half an egg? Okay, they're going to mix it, beat it with a fork. I have seen some try and get the hand beaters out to beat one egg, but just do it with a fork. Pair up with a partner, and you just add the best two half that you can, and then pass that on to your partner. So you're going to add your egg, you're going to add your spices. Now, as I said, the spices we've got are your coriander, your mint, cumin, half a teaspoon of those. Remember, teaspoon is the smaller one, not the bigger one. And 1/4 teaspoon of the chili. And I put just under 1/4 teaspoon because my family tend to let me know about it if I put too much in. Salt, a pinch. So a pinch, because we can't just stick our fingers in at school, a good measure is perhaps 1/8 teaspoon, which I know it's going to involve guesswork, but half of your 1/4 spoon. So you get your 1/4 teaspoon out and you just put a little bit in the bottom. So a pinch of your salt, and then if you want to, a pinch of your pepper. I've got all those in here. Mix it through. You can mix it with a spoon, but sometimes it is easier to just get your hands in there and have a good go at it. I'm just waiting a few more minutes for my burgle to be ready, but I can start to mix this now. Now what I'm going to do is add my lemon. Just squeeze the juice of half a lemon in there. And that lemon will be nice with the yogurt as well. For those of you who like your pancake with lemon and yogurt, or perhaps that's just me. Strange little combination there, who would know? Okay, once we've added our burgle, we're actually going to form it into walnut-sized balls, and we're going to pop it in the fridge for 10 to 20 minutes. Now the reason we did that is, as I said, we want it to be as cold as we can so it retains its shape. We want it to be moist, and it just helps let everything settle and stay together better when you cook it. When we're cooking them, you don't want to turn them too much. If you turn them too early, they will break apart. So I would leave them at least 4 minutes on medium heat, medium to medium high, probably medium heat, somewhere like that. And I would put them into walnut-sized balls and then flatten them a little bit so that you're not flattening them in the pan, you're flattening them while they're cold, then you're popping them into the fridge so that they can set and firm up a little bit, and then you'll put them into the pan. Now this is a really moist recipe, and that's what helps it retain its shape as well. So don't be stressed if you have a look and you go, oh, it's really gooey and runny, should I put more of something else in to dry it up and to absorb that moisture? We don't want to do that. They are meant to be moist meatballs. They aren't meant to be dry, okay? And when you cook it, it will dry out a little bit. So when you put it in your wrap, it doesn't taste like there's been too much moisture in there. So I'm going to drain the burgle. Now, as you can see, that there does look a bit like a couscous, even though most commonly it's compared to a rice as for dishes it's used in. It actually looks more like a couscous, and we're just going to put that in there. It's pretty close to 10 minutes. Spot on. Good guesswork. So just mixing those together. I have taken one glove off because I was at the sink handling other things, but I won't be touching the food with it. And rolling it into your walnut-sized balls, popping it onto your tray and flattening them down. Now you need to cover that. As you know, we don't leave meat uncovered in the fridge. In fact, it's best to cover most things in the fridge, particularly with an onion in it. I know onion, when you set it aside, can absorb a lot of the bacteria that are in your fridges, and people use them in their fridges for that reason. People even use them in their bedrooms. That if they've got a cold, they'll put a sliced onion beside their bed to hopefully draw out all the bacteria in the room and get rid of the cold quicker. Don't know how successful it is, but there's a little extra use for your onion. So I would put those in the fridge for closer to 20 minutes than 10 if you've got the time. We don't always have the time. Sometimes we get home late and we think we'll just whip that up. Cover that with some wrap. And put that in the fridge. Now, while you've got that in the fridge, excuse me a second. Now, even though that is on a tray, I still like to store my raw meats, even though it's on a tray, in the bottom of the fridge. Okay, so if there is any drips or spillage or anything like that, we don't have it dripping onto other foods. Just a good habit to get into with our food safety and hygiene. While we're doing that, I'll push those aside. We can get started on our herbed yogurt. Now, the other ingredient that we might not be familiar with in the herbed yogurt is, again, of Middle Eastern origins, and it's the tahini paste. Very difficult to find in the supermarket if you don't know what you're looking for. And just comes in a jar. Found mine in the health food section. And it is a rich source of vitamin B, which we know is good for energy and brain function. So just another good high nutrient food in there for you. The ingredients that we have in our herbed yogurt is, of course, your Greek yogurt, 60 grams of your Greek yogurt. We have fresh coriander, parsley and mint. We have, again, lemon, extra virgin olive oil, our tahini. So if it's not under paste, it may be a sauce, may come under sauce. It has paste on the jar, but some supermarkets have it in the sauce section because they classify it more as a sauce. And we're actually going to use the food processor for this one. So what I've done is grabbed a little bit of each of your herbs. So it says 1/8 of a cup of your mint, parsley and coriander. So I've cut those off our herbs, and then I've just roughly chopped them because they're going into the food processor, so we don't need to be too particular about that. We also have half a clove of garlic, which is crushed, okay, just like before. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our tahini paste. Now I'm going to scoop it out with the same spoon, our yogurt and our tahini paste, just because they're going into the same dish anyway. Obviously, if we weren't putting them in here together and blending them, we wouldn't use the same spoon. We would be nice and clean and use separate clean utensils. Very important. Okay. So please don't think that I'm just being haphazard and would do this with anything. So there's our yogurt, our tahini. we're going to put in our lemon juice. So once again, it's just squeezing your lemon juice into there. No measures, it just says half a lemon juice squeezed. Okay. And then we're going to pop the lid on and give it a bit of a pulse. Okay, we're now going to pop in our mixed herbs that we've chopped up, our mint, parsley and coriander, and our extra virgin olive oil. You can add some more pepper to that if you're wanting a bit more of a pep to it, a bit more of a zing. My family find quite enough zing in the burgers, so I don't add pepper into my herbed yogurt, but you can do so if you feel the need. By then, you wait your 10-20 minutes, you get your little koftas, your lamb koftas out of the fridge, and you pop them into your pan. Preheat it, of course, just for a couple of minutes till you can feel, without putting your hand on the pan, but above it, you can feel the heat coming off it. If you have a non-stick pan, you may not need to use oil, but if a lot of pans do need a spray or a little bit of oil in there, remember they are moist and they have got moisture in them, so it's up to you. You will probably know your own pan. By the 20 minutes, the fat in your ingredients in your lamb should still be fairly solid, and it should keep the shape fairly well. When you turn them, be very gentle. They do break apart very easily if you turn them too early or if you're too rough turning them. And I haven't flattened them really thin. As you saw, they were still probably about almost a centimetre high, thick. So they still, even though they're small in diameter, because of the height, they will still take maybe 4 to 6 minutes depending on the temperature of your pan and how you like your lamb cooked. So rather than have you stand over there and watch me cook off my lamb burgers, my koftas, I have them here. I have them just on the plate, and you can just, while they're still warm, if you're serving this for a family, you might present the kofta like that to the family, and then you can have around your lettuce, cucumber, anything else you choose to put with it, and they could make their own, or you would have your yogurt in a bowl that they could drizzle over themselves. But because it's just us, I am spooning it straight from the processor. I like mine down the centre. Some people like to spread it over their flatbed, and then I would put the lettuce and the cucumber on the side. Serve it up, and you could even have that with some chips or some side salads or whatever it is your family likes to have. You can make small ones, have them for entrees. You can make the large ones, have them for mains, or the Greeks would have a lot of different foods out. You may have them as trial tasters, appetizers as well. You could even leave the little burgers, the little koftas on their own, and you could have them with the dipping sauce or the yogurt next to them, and you could take them one at a time and offer them round as an appetizer. So that is my lamb kofta wrap. I hope I haven't made too many mistakes and lost you along the way. Sorry for the distance if it's a little bit hard to see. It was a little bit hard as soon as I told everyone that I was filming it. They all ran from the house screaming. So hopefully that's okay, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.